Welcome back, punters. Of course, we've got John Walter here this morning from somewhere in New South Wales.
Tuncurry, Forbes room. I apologise in advance that I'm running this off Airbnb Wi-Fi, so anything could happen, but we'll try and get through it and best of our ability.
Indeed. So we're just going to review the Saturday meeting at Rosehill. Weather fine, track good. Nice to hear that for a change. Good 3 is what the track came out, bang on. Shoot races were a bit faster. They were more like a 2.4, so still in the good range. And we saw a track where, in terms of the shoot races, 3 leaders won. In terms of the course proper races, still an advantage to be on pace. And closer to the inside rails and run or lane 2, and then in the home straight, pretty fair. So they had their chances, pace dependent. So let's get into race 1, the 1872, which is not actually a midway, but anyway, we'll talk about that. Average tempo, and I thought we saw a pretty good win.
Yeah, it was a weird one, wasn't it? Like it looked like they were going too quick up front, and they really weren't. And then Secret Glamour looked the one probably under the most pressure on the bend, and it did proper launch late. Like it's certainly done something pretty special late to get over the top of them on a day where it certainly was an advantage to be back where it was. So it's done something good in what looks an otherwise pretty steady race.
Ran the 4th best last 400 sectional rating and the best last 200 sectional rating of the meeting. The winner, so definitely a horse to follow. So we give that one up early. Nautical Miss, bit of an issue there. May not have backed up, they've said. Time for a spell. And what else do we have to say?
I think it's having a mental breakdown. So for the sake of sanity, we might just talk about them. If we need to bring something up, I'll bring it up. But it seems to be stalling everything.
We're a little bit hampered with the Airbnb Wi-Fi.
I'll be back home tomorrow. Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's probably the only horse I've got to follow out of the meeting. So at the moment, with much confidence, it definitely looks like it'll measure up to Sydney grade, no problem.
Well, it is already Sydney grade, isn't it?
Yeah. It'll go. I mean, it'll keep going through the grades. Yeah.
Notions probably needs a softer track. Probably a forgive run for it, I think. In terms of the other runners, probably not a lot to say, is there?
I didn't really think. I thought it was a pretty steady race apart from them. Rosehill is probably a midweek just a Saturday horse. Kazalark's had excuses there for sure. Probably the one that would have benefited most from us looking at the vision. Bit of a weird ride. He had his chance to come around him and didn't. Tried to ride for luck when there was only 2 horses in front of him, which I thought was weird, but still steady. Wonga, who it's probably just a Saturday horse, more a midweek horse as well. I think the winner's the only one that's progressive in Saturday grade, whereas the others probably need to drop back a peg, if anything.
Okay, we can probably talk about now the 1500 Highway, race 2. Solid tempo here. They did they went out solid to the 800 and then they quickened up further to the 600. Very poor last 400 time here, John. And the 400 to 200 was pretty much where all the damage was done, about 7.6 lengths below. And last 400, 9.1 lengths below. So anything running on here was flattered and just simply passing tired horses. And given the fast or solid tempo early, they still couldn't run part-time. So not much to say about this race other than it's probably one for the bin.
Yeah, I was only going to try and add the vision just because to show what sort of happened. But I think anyone who watched it or has seen it, Zadig sort of came out with a really strong intent to lead. They came out with the change of tactics early that if it jumped, it was intending to lead. And for whatever reason, they decided to sort of fire up Sung Blue as well. And the blinkers added also, added to the speed. And they just carved each other into the ground. Hard to knock the winner too much just because, this is its go. It's a back marker that needs pace on, and it was really dominant. Found a nice spot, but the one certainly just behind it, I think, was it Smooth as Spree. Danzadell had really nice runs, with cover back off the speed and sort of whacked away into second, whereas at least the winner did something. It was, it's got to turn a foot when the pace is assisting it. And, he's just a horse that'll pick up these sorts of races when things fall his way, whereas the others, like St. Danzadel, Smooth Spree, probably need absolutely everything to go their way to pick up a race. So I'd be negative about the place getters here.
Look, Sunglue, who had the blinkers on first time up to 1500, ran the second fastest sectional rating, or second best sectional rating to the 800, and best to the 2 to 600 and 2 to 400. So completely carved up. Blinkers need to come off it, I think. I would be looking for that next start to sort of suggest it had any chance, but I think it's worth a forgive anyway. It was sort of, in the market and expected to do something, and obviously that ruined its chances.
Yeah, complete forgives to both those horses, really, aren't they? And they further took away from the race because, as you said, Sunblue was well and truly in the betting as well. So not only did it set the race up for the others, it carved itself out of it.
Indeed. Anything else to say out of that race, John?
No, not really. I was a little bit forgiving of Lady Tabloid, which is the one that was the first chaser, the Nick Olive horse, but it was beaten a long way. I thought it was a pretty steady race that I didn't really want to be too positive about anything. So rather have the stick out and be whacking things over the head there than trying to find them next start positively.
So Felix Majestic got the job done here, and we saw the short price favourite Casablanca Kamagutsa. Of course, there was plenty of talk about the performance, and look, it was a good performance given the pattern, or given what it overcame Vita pattern. It was a bit slow out and held up a touch and sort of ran on very well and ran some pretty slick sectionals late, as you'd expect. Certainly not sacking the horse. I wanted to back it. I didn't back it. There was just something in its profile that was a bit of a negative for mine to take the 8 to 11-ish price that was on offer. I ended up having something on Tashi, but only small, and Kathy got a winner on Saturday.
Yeah, she's a funny rider. She's actually got quite a good record when she pushes horses forward. So I think she's like, well, most riders do. Leader, outside leader, have a good record. It's not a hard spot to be good from, but she actually, is a completely different rider when she does roll forward. She was a bit unlucky on this horse last start that she sort of got half carved up. That was that day, I think, when the fence looked like it was pretty good. Was it Rosehill midweek? It was a weird meeting, and this horse ran quite well there. And this time, things went according to plan. She's one of those riders that they forget about her a bit, I think, too. The other riders, I'm not saying they don't take her seriously, but I think when they sort of, if you're letting Kathy lead, they, for whatever reason, sometimes just let her get away with things. There was the same thing happened at Canterbury on that Carmody horse the other day that was sort of out the gate. Its last few runs have been really good, and the betting just doesn't seem to like Kathy and doesn't adjust for her when she's on pace for mine. So I think she's actually findable when she's on a horse like this. And the horse put in a good performance. Obviously, was in the right spot, controlled the speed, but did something too, wasn't it? It wasn't a terrible race. It wasn't as if it was a fluke win. And I think Casablanca went really well. It just basically had an impossible task from where it was. And I think, Felix Majestic looks like in that red card form around it, looks really strong. So, may not be this prep, but this horse does look quite progressive, and I doubt this will be its last win.
No, I agree with that. Just in terms of Kathy and what you're saying there, John, look, all jockeys, as you say, have a good record, in terms of profit when they're on leaders. But Kathy in particular, I mean, her strike rate in terms of leaders on settling, this is actual leaders as opposed to predicted leaders, is around 20%. But her profit on turnover is around 51, and that's assuming a normalised SP. And in terms of horses that are in front at the turn, well, she's winning about 75% on turnover. So I suppose the point is that she is underrated by the market when she is on those go forward horses.
On paces, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because her strike rate overall would be something like 5% or something for the last however long. And I do think she's very passive on the ones that get back. So it does make sense. But if you can predict when she's going to put herself into the race, she's more than capable of pushing them out at the end of the one is kind of the point, I suppose.
Strike rate 8.1% the last 2 years, Cavi. In terms of a metropolitan strike rate, though, just below 5, 4.9 last 2 years. So she's naturally a better rider in the provincial and country circuit. Okay, certainly don't sack the favourite in that race.
The horse you back there too, Tashi, I think it just ran into a couple of nice horses there, and it's going well enough to pick up something of this. Races wouldn't, and Majestic just had its way, and just I think it's probably the only other horse. Yoshino went okay first up. Not a big fan of Sorgente. Forecaster actually was another horse I sort of thought, but it's a weird horse, Forecaster, that's really got its benchmark up quite high, and it's a horse here where I sort of noting if it went back to a bigger track and an easier race, but it's going to get weight and it's hard for it to be placed. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but definitely Tashi's going well enough to pick up a race if it's placed well.
Okay, so let's get on to a race 4. Ruby Tuesday won this race. So
what happened here, Paul? What happened here? Anything happened here? I don't even want to watch the vision of this, even though it's casting my computer at this stage. I'm not pulling it up.
Fair enough.
Did you fall into this horse? Did you fall into the late drift? Because I certainly did.
Frumos?
Yes.
No. Had it on top, but didn't back it. In fact, I don't think I bet this race at all. No, I didn't. It was one of those races. I mean, obviously Frumos, everyone's saying should have won, and who knows if it got clear. Certainly had no luck. Vassapol had no luck. Probably not as badly as affected as that horse we just mentioned. What else did we say in that race? 10 Bells, slow to recover, and found that it had reopened a wound on its near hind pastern. So probably forgive to it. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of this race. Average tempo. There's
a lot of problems, isn't it, with the race? Like it's just completely cast because like you got the Jolly Fee was unlucky. 10 Bells just has no recovery. Frumos, who knows? And then like I get worried because the winner is a horse that usually needs to dictate to do its best. It's missed the kick. It's sort of got held up, shuffled, come to the middle and run them down. So, like it's not that bad a race on paper. So it's just the whole race for me is in the bin race. I don't know what to do with it just because it looks to me like Ruby Tuesday's overachieved and it's done something it shouldn't be able to do, especially first up. And you even got Thalassophile, but it's a horse I hate. I don't think it's much of a horse. Bella Rouge was only fair. Just the whole race is just a bit poxy and like that's what you say. Even I'm going to say that it would have won Frumos. I'm happy to say that, but it doesn't. That normally to me says you want to go hunting for the actual winner and be against it, but it's probably the run of its life. So, it's just for me a very cautious race to be handling next time around all of these horses.
Look, it's gone as good as it can go, the winner. It has actually won from behind before at Hawkesbury a couple of preps ago. So, but I know what you're saying. It does tend to do best when
quirky horse, isn't it? When it feels like it, it's a bloody good horse. It's got a good engine, but it's it usually it's got a few tricks. So it was a surprise to see it come down the middle and overcome whatever pattern was there. Obviously, had help with other runners unlucky here and a bunch of things going on, but it was just a really strange race. And I don't think Karen McAvoy will be on Frumos next time.
Yeah, I mean, pretty bunch finish, isn't it? Half a dozen horses within 1.75 lengths and the entire field spread over 4.5. So, look, it's not something I want to go looking for myself.
No. And Frumos is going to come out 2s on, isn't it? It's the one you've got to be cautious of. And I'm not blaming McAvoy. I don't think he did a lot wrong. He's just a very cautious rider that sort of waits for gaps rather than, preempting them and anticipating and those sorts of things. So I think I'm not having a go at Karen. I just think I don't think he'll be back on. But just be careful with Frumos because, like you say, I think everyone will say it should have won by 5. Maybe it should have. Maybe it shouldn't have. No one knows the answer. But I think the market will anticipate that's how it should have performed, especially early. Late in the piece, you might get a dramatic drift one way or the other on this horse next time. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes and what it does.
Okay, let's get on to the midway over 1,300 metres, race 5. Average tempo early. They did click up a bit coming to the 600, sort of got to above average at that point in time. And we saw the leader get the job done here, Byron. What else do we have to say in that race? Probably a forgive was Deep Snow, who ran last, but was wide without cover from about the 800. So not a spot you wanted to be in. Delatat lost a plate in run, and that's probably all I've got to say about it.
Putrid
John,
race, yeah. Like Deep Snow's a weird. Like I agree, completely forgiving, but it was the sort of horse like last time. It just found the Christmas run, and maybe it was a little bit overplayed here. So definitely forgiving of where it was here. It can race closer in a different race, different setup, but it's not much of a horse either. And that's what I'm saying is it's a horrible race. I was thought that Divine Breath, and I think there was another horse that raced in a similar spot. Oh golly gosh, just had absolute dream runs here. At least Byron, the winner, sort of worked a little bit to lead. Did set a solid enough tempo. Sort of you can give it a pass, but probably still siding on the side of negative rather than positive. It's unlikely to find a race where it has as much in its favour as it did here, Byron. But Divine Breath, all the horse that had those rails runs behind and struggled to get past him. I think I'm wanting to be pretty savage on them next time they go around. I think this whole race was a bit plain.
Especially, you could only really be rails in run and lane 2, couldn't you, in the run? Like if you weren't between the 800 and 400, if you were anywhere else, it was pretty tough.
You were doing it tough for sure.
Let's talk about a race 6 to 2,000 metres 78, average tempo here. Zoom On got the job done, back from Melbourne down south off a big win that didn't rate all that highly for mine, the Moonee Valley win. But still, it improved a little bit and got the job done here. What do we have to say about the others?
It was a race that looked dangerous on paper, didn't it? Especially for Zoom On. You had Main Stage sort of drawn underneath it. You had Made by Khan out wide. You had the other horse, Shame on Us. Bjorn's not known for taking a backward step. So there looked 4 predominant leaders here. And then after 100 metres or 200 metres, you had Main Stage missed the kick and Shame on Us came out negative, and all of a sudden Zoom On rolls to the front and had full control with Made by Khan sitting outside it and having no intention to push the pressure. So, yeah, things changed here after about 200 metres, and visually I thought it looked like it went plain, the winner, and time sort of backed that up, didn't it? It was a pretty steady race. I would imagine that it's regressed, if anything, the winner. And
no, actually, I've got it going ahead slightly.
Okay. That's why you're saying you had the Melbourne one down a bit, didn't you? So, I thought it was a complete nothing race. And again, I was probably trying to find things to be negative on rather than positive. Shibley pulled up lame, didn't it? It made a wide run and pulled up lame.
Yeah. Shame on Us.
The Waller horse Smirk sort of kind of got held up a bit, but I thought it was plain as well. I thought it was an absolute nothing race.
I mean, the winners, it was only third up, right? So I'm thinking that you'd expect it to improve.
Yes.
Third up of a dozen or so starts prior. So, it's just a horse, I think.
I think that's kind of when I say nothing race. I don't mean it's a bad race in general. I'm just mean, nothing to be learned. And exactly like you're saying, like Zoom On's, what you see is what you get. I don't think it's got 5 lengths of improvement up its sleeve under any other circumstances. It's just, it is what it is. When it gets control, it does what it does, and it's pretty predictable, which is it's a good horse from people like our perspective. I think you kind of always know what you're going to get with him, and I think he's found his level, and he'll just keep doing the same thing. And that's for most of these horses. King of Clubs was good first up, but it had every possible chance, and only because it was 2,000 first up, you're kind of forgiving of it and expecting it to go ahead next time.
Yeah, it's only had 3 starts here locally in Australia now, so that was the best of them. And the Waterhouse Botyard is certainly going well at the moment.
Holy heck.
They indeed, aren't they?
And they don't even look like we've got another winner in the next race, I think. And it was never sort of travelling or anything, was it? They're just finding under pressure, which is, I guess, Bjorn Baker, it's a weird, this time of year, maybe it's just, hard fit horses have a strong advantage at this time of the year. Tracks are a bit firmer, and those stables that work their horses a bit, I'm not going to say hard is a bad word, isn't it? Have them fit and ready to go. They have a bit of an advantage this time of year.
Yeah, it was always a bit of a recipe, wasn't it, when Gay was away to perhaps avoid some of her. Yeah, exactly. But doesn't seem to be the case in this instance.
Is she away?
But I think they're both away. I think they're in Aspen.
Oh, why wouldn't you be? It is the time of year she normally does disappear. I mean, I know Ado got a break. He got like 4 days, I think. So whereas Gay goes for 4 months, poor old Ado gets 4 days. But that's you got to earn your stripes.
Indeed. Okay, let's talk about the next race. Of course, the Bot Yard and Waterhouse Yard got the winner here over 1,200 metres, average tempo. Yeah, look, I mean, once again, 4 horses within a 3/4 of a length. So, not sure what you want to make of the race. I mean, Broken Arrows looked like it was looming up to get the job done and sort of died on its run a bit the last 200. And so am I, sort of charged up the fence and finished off quite nicely. And outside those, I'm not quite sure. Amathuba, probably a forgive. It got held up and, it can go a bit better than that. So, yeah, Rainbow Connection. That's the one I had a small bet on, but didn't quite get there.
It's I think you've explained it well, as in not much between a lot of these horses. Vernelli's had control, but then had to do something to hold them off, and did. Found that couple of lengths that it needed to find, and held them to the line. And then you've got a lot of horses that, like not American President. What was it? Rainbow Connection loomed, So Army loomed, Broken Arrows, as you said, loomed, and that's what they are. They just need that little. They either need a pattern in their favour or a little bit of pace advantage, something happening late in a race to help them over the line, and they didn't get it here. They ran well, and I think most of them ran well. And then you've got sort of American President who missed it and got dragged out early, and then was keen, sort of raced wide, and a Complete Forgive, Testator, Silence, a little bit the same, average out, got shuffled back. I think it's actually going quite well, that horse, and I'd love to see a senior rider go on it, or a more senior rider. Star Beretta, a Complete Forgive, same situation, back inside, shuffled, blocked, and you couldn't do that on this track. And Amathuba was weird. He was really aggressive on it early, and then looked to be travelling, copped that check, as you said, sort of got held up and then sort of gave up. So I'm not sure what happened there. But and even Devil's Throat wasn't bad, sort of made a run and then peaked. So I think all these horses there's not much between them. I don't think it's a bad race, but there's not much between them. And if they raced again next week with slightly different circumstances on a different track or something, they'd probably get a different result most weeks. So I don't think there's anything wrong with most of the runs here or the race. I just don't think there's much between the horses.
Yeah, American President, someone needs to get the hoses out for it.
That's what I mean. He's run last or close enough to it, and he, if it was a wet Randwick next week, you'd have him probably mark favourite. That's the sort of race it is. All these horses just want a little tweak in their favour, and they could probably win the race, and that's why I think we got bunch margins here. I don't think it's a poor race. I just think there's just a very even race ability wise.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about race 8, the 7 furlong 88, and of course, someone please send me the address for Rory Hutchins. I've got to send him a box of chocolates. We got the winner here, John.
Cavalier. Geez, you must have been. Yeah, I agree. He set it up. He got a bit itchy early, didn't he? And there was money for it too. Titanium Power, which was interesting. But,
well, the two horses I bought in this race
on Uncle Jake's. Yes,
Uncle Jake's was Titanium Power and Cavalier Charles. And
so when Cotilli shot 4 in front and was travelling, you were a little bit nervous, but
look,
I was unlucky. Cotilli, he just, for whatever reason, he jammed it a little bit too early to hold a runner out, which was sort of inconsequential, and got the horse going a bit keen, then got left in front a long way out. I'd say it was the run of the race, Cotilli, but he's not one of my horses. The winner's just like super honest, isn't he? Just sort of out-toughed him, if anything. He's just he's nothing special, Cavalier Charles, but did look his race to a certain degree on paper, and that's pretty much how it worked out, wasn't it? He was just too solid for them, if anything. Decent racing pattern, settling midfield, and that was it.
He'd been scratched a few times in recent, which was a bit frustrating because I'd liked him in a couple of those races.
Yeah, the more country style races. Yep.
Yes, yes. So
What
what's
was
the
the
what's the Villiers now called? What have they renamed
I
it?
think it's called is it Ingham? I think it's Ingham. It's not Inglis. It's Ingham. It's the
The
$2 million
Ingham.
Ingham.
Ingham. Is it going to that?
Which one?
It is brutality.
Oh, you would imagine so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, 40's run was pretty good. Under the
Everyone's
64 and
carrying
a
on that it
half,
was a
and
barrier trial, right? But it's at 64, a wide draw around Rosehill, and like it wasn't as if he dragged it out of the race. What do
no.
they want him to do? Where do they want him to jam it out and try and lead on it? I don't understand. Like, I'm not calling it a barrier trial. It's just that's how it was set up. It's run extremely well, all things considered, and I don't know how you could expect it to do anything more. But it will be better suited next week. I thought Deficit was actually a sneaky little run that came with it too. Not as you know, I hate these sorts of horses, but Deficit can certainly race closer. And I just loved, through the line, he was nice and strong, and he just had a little flashing light on him that if he finds the right race next start, he can certainly run to near his best Deficit.
Right. Just having a look at brutality drops to 54, so it drops about 10.5 kilos, but that's still about a half a kilo above its true weight.
And
he's
still got the problems, isn't he? He's still got that racing pattern, and probably wants to sting out and things that he may not get. He's been a frustrating horse, I would imagine, for Connections this prep, that he's run out of his skin every start but hasn't got a win.
Yeah, I imagine the favourite for it would be Nugget.
Nugget and Riadini, I'd say, will be right up the top of the market there, I'm assuming.
Let me just have a look here. Nugget favourite, this is Tab. Nugget from Whettle and Brutality. I'm just going to look at, of course, Top Sport, which is our good sponsor. Let's have a look here. Futures, Ingham. Yeah, similar market, 3-1 Nugget, 5-1 Whettle. Riadini, 15-2. 7-1 on Tab.
It's a good horse, Nugget, but like Riadini's coming out of a lot stronger race. I'd be interested to see what prices they start come Saturday, because I know that everyone it's got a bit of a boom on it, Nugget, hasn't it? But
once we get the draw and everything, so anyway, I thought that Brutality's run was probably a nice top off for that race. That's all.
Exactly.
Titanium Power, Cardiac Arrhythmia, as was my money on it, but fortunately I got it with Cavalier Charles.
I love those cardiac arrhythmias when they go out 10 above. Like is it cardiac arrhythmia, or is it having a coronary because it's entitled to? It's there must be a fine line.
It's got a trial again anyway. Titanium Power. So let's talk about the hot pot, I Am Me, in race 9. I think we're up to race 9, aren't we? Yep. Very slow tempo here. Sort of winner, of course, lead and do it easily. I thought on the leads run was pretty good in this race, being a wide no cover. I know it was a fairly slow pace, but still.
Yeah.
Lord Olympus looks like it might have come back okay. And Super Pursuit having its first run in Australia. Thought it went okay as well.
Yeah, the betting was probably the weird thing here. Not weird. Like 190, you went, wow, this is probably, takeable. 170, okay, that's fair enough. I think it started 140 on the totes. I'm not sure what the SP was, but someone out there was very confident this horse was going to lead and control the race. And I thought they may have a few nervous moments at some point, but as soon as they handed up, even Invincible Kiss looked like it could have easily crossed and decided not to, and they just said, Tommy, here you go. Here's your early Christmas present, but he's definitely the horse on the up in the race. Lord Olympus is a horse I know back to front. First up for Neesham. It will drive you insane, this horse. Agree, it went very nicely and very nice through the line. Looked like the rider got completely lost, half missed the kick, but just be a little bit wary with Lord Olympus. But I thought it and Key Largo were the two horses that were most affected by the the tempo and the way the race was run. Key Largo is not a horse that likes to take off early and try and circle the field. It's a 1,000-metre pick gaps and sprint for 200-metre horse. So I'd be forgiving it, even though it was noticeably weak late in the race. I think it can prove that wrong. The winner's on the up, and the rest of them, on the lead. I think I agree with you. It was a nice run. Probably wants 1,200 in a race where it can probably settle a little bit closer naturally, rather than what happened there Saturday, and it's ready to do something. And that was about it from that race. Yeah, Super Pursuit. Not sure what to do with it yet, but it was a nice enough run for sure.
So just talking about the SP, what do we got? 1 to 2, $1.49 on the exchange. So after com, that's 4 to 9, and every tote 2 to 5. So yep.
Someone liked it.
The big man's chimed in there with the totes.
Jeez.
And indeed, it was very, very short, but probably entitled to be. I didn't have it quite that short. But,
if you knew it was going to lead, right, you probably could have marked it that short. Like you knew, and you lead and control, you could have marked it that short. But
you didn't know. You didn't know with Wisdom of Water and all-time legend.
That's what I mean.
And, if it was sort of a more obvious soft map, for sure. Absolutely.
Agree. And that's what I mean. Like you could probably mark it closer to 170, 180, but that's a long way from 140 and that's 140 that they're happy to take. So they probably had it shorter than that. But anyway, good luck to them.
Indeed. Race 10. Let's talk about that. I don't think there's anything else out of race.
What about this race?
9 to cover. I couldn't understand the price of the Waller horse in the morning myself. But anyway, very slow tempo, like very slow.
I got it. I think $5 was as short as I could get the Waller horse, and but I didn't anticipate, like you said, it looked a very leisurely tempo on paper, but this was extreme, especially considering the fence was pretty good. On pace was obviously pretty good. The previous winner was left alone and allowed to win, so that normally means that they all decide they're going to go crazy kamikaze in the last. And the two riders in front were smart enough to sort of package it up between each other. They had a little race for the front for the first 200 metres, and as soon as they established who was going to be where, they took control of the race, didn't they? And they gave nothing else a possible chance, and I probably call this race a glorified barrier trial.
Don't think it's much. Look, my market was 9 to 4 Tenderize and 3 to 1 the favourite. So
you were happy for a long way in the straight by the sound of it.
Well, it wasn't a race I wanted to get too involved with, but I did have something on the 16.
I'm glad that I had something on the winner and got you for once. I finally got the better of you for once. I'm allowed one victory every now and then.
You are indeed. Look, most of the joy was all Cavalier Charles for me in Sydney, and Najim Sahal at Pakenham, and we unloaded into a very short price one in Toowoomba in the last. So I was sitting in a concert, an Angels concert.
In the last? What time's that? Like 9 o'clock?
8:47. So I'm sitting in an Angels concert who played in Brisbane. I was supposed to see this a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, and they cancelled the tickets, cancelled the show, I should say. And where are we here now? Why have I lost you?
Trying to find the name of it.
Here it is. No. So they were playing with a sort of an orchestra and choir background, and it was quite good.
Did it win?
It pissed in, yeah. So I'd taken sort of 4 to 6, 4 to 7, and then copped the deduction into about 2s on, and I was sort of waiting in the afternoon thinking about what was going to happen. Then I got into the tab at $1.40 again. Marked at $1.10. It started $1.10 every tote, and did the job. So I'm sitting there trying to watch a concert.
Yeah.
Oh, look, you're getting $1.40, $1.50, $1.10 chance. You're absolutely killing it, right?
You got to bet. Yeah, you got to bet.
Yeah.
That last race before we go, there was a horse Touristic that was in the Snowden camp. First start here, Total Forgive. The favourite was a Total Forgive, but I'm still not convinced by it either. I'd be just wary of being too forgiving for it. Into Summertime, Newlywed, we're all both forgive. Everything that settled behind the first 4 was a forgive, and the first 4 probably just be careful of them because they couldn't have had it easier or better than what they did.
Indeed. Okay, that's it. Of course, punters, if you don't have a Top Sport account, make sure you contact the team or Tristan, and they'll get you set up. And of course, the minimum bet limits apply on all meetings and venues from the time that they go up, irrespective of jurisdiction.
No questions this week, but I'll be back to normal next week, and we'll work out what we're doing with the questions.
Indeed, we will. And I'm not sure what we're going to do later in the week. I've got a really hectic week this week. Things starting, new staff on board, and new IT infrastructure deployments, and all sorts of things happening. So we'll just play it by ear in terms of what we do later in the week. Okay, punters, thanks for watching.
Thanks.